All right, we are live.
Yeah, we're live. Okay. Technical difficulties. Oh, yeah, the old laptop decided to go, well, we're not going to work for you tonight. So we're at a different location. We have moved to the other half of the house. As you can see, look, as you can see, the computers and stuff. So,
well, these things
this is going to be, we're off our game tonight. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. Do we just say hi? I do have a drink here. A lot less because we've had a half an hour of stress going. So, what have you been up to?
You know, I'm having a little trouble hearing you, Rusty. I'm not sure. How am I sounding to you? How am I sounding to you? I can also hear myself.
I can hear you.
Like, I think maybe because you don't have your headset on,
yeah.
I can hear me.
Good question. Let's see. Tell you what. How about now?
Good.
All right. Wow.
That's better.
That's loud. Okay.
Excellent. No, that's good. So, sorry, I missed what you were drinking there. What is your musty drink for tonight?
Let me turn the sound down a little bit. You're like screaming into my ears.
I'm like the Emperor and the of Oz, you know. Oh, there you go.
12-year-old Glenfiddich.
There you go. Gold standard.
Yeah, the old standard. So, as we were saying,
that's what I've got there. I've got the Voodoo Ranger.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah, it's good. I actually New Belgium, so American beer.
American.
That's right, American.
American. Let me move this computer a little closer over here.
I think we actually need a musty drink tonight.
Yeah, we do. Well, you know, it's like we always talk about having problems and things not working the way we always wanted. You know, I don't know how much of the topic we're going to have tonight, but let's kind of hang out and get something in tonight.
Well, I think we could probably still go.
That's got a head on it.
It does. This actually came out a lot more heady than usual. Like typically when I was pouring in my pint glass, I didn't have that because I got a 6-pack of this. But yeah, it'll go down. But it's a little airy. But you know, we're gonna. I know we're starting late, but if you're up for it, we could still go for an hour if you want. It'll be uploaded later, and it'll just be an hour. You know, it'll be the same. You know, it's just that unfortunately, I don't think we have. Do we have anybody watching right now? If you see anybody,
I don't know.
Well, if somebody's there, and usually it says at the bottom of the screen. I do apologize that we're running late tonight. But yeah. I mean, if you're up for it, we could do the show.
Yeah, we can do a little bit of time here tonight.
Unless you can't.
Let's just say we have a good half an hour to 40 minutes of time that we can work on tonight. Like I said, it's going to be a little bit shorter tonight. So what have you been up to lately other than playing with your new toy?
I have some of that stuff, but I have something else to show. I have this right here. So I've got some warriors. Oh, and now my screen's gone black.
Well,
I'm back here now, right?
Yeah.
Maybe I shut it off. I had my other camera here, and there we go. I shut off the camera there. But next. I have some warriors here for Saga. And I'm just working on these guys.
Next to your dice tower.
Yeah, so it's just base paint here. Nothing special. I painted the shields white to put the transfers on. Just have the base paint. I haven't done the flag or anything. And I got lost again here. But besides that, I have Dice Tower that I printed.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool. You know, I never owned one of these before. The thing that's really neat is this prints with a moving bridge, a moving gate. So this actually prints this way. I didn't assemble it.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of cool, right?
Are you going to make all the fun sound effects from the dice tower as it goes bouncing through going, ooh, ow, ooh, ow.
That's right. Well, it's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
The thing that's really neat is just that it prints really small, like really fine steps. So this way it won't get caught when it's going down.
Yeah.
It has a little hole in the bottom. So you can actually put an LED and you can actually have a light shining through this prison gate here.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's got some nice little details on it, some crests and things. But yep.
Is that a total replica of the dice tower from the show, The Dice Tower?
I don't know. I know that it's the most commonly printed one on the main website for printing on Thingiverse. It's sort of like considered a prototypical dice tower, but whether it's at all related to the dice tower of the show, no idea. It may be. I'm actually not that familiar with that show. I know it's a huge show, but I'm really not that familiar with it, to be honest. So
I used to watch it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got too many shows to watch, and I ended up somehow along the line it disappeared because I know that YouTube does this wonderful thing is if you don't watch a channel long enough, they eliminate you as a subscriber. So I think that's what happened.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Is that true?
Yeah, I think so.
So if you don't watch somebody's channel long enough, it removes it?
Yeah.
Wow. Huh. That's interesting.
Yep.
I never really paid attention to that.
Yeah. Because I remember sometime along the line, it's like, I'm not getting anything from the Dice Tower feed. And I think I'm no longer subscribed to it.
Well, that's interesting. Because there are channels like, I won't name them, but there are, even some bigger channels that I don't tend to watch as much, but I always kind of like to keep them on there just in case there's something that I want to see. And I've never noticed getting kicked off of it. So,
yeah.
Well, but I'm sure that you're right. So, I guess if you don't watch something long enough, then you just don't notice.
Yeah, that is a fact.
That's what they're banking on.
Because I do have a bunch of channels that I'm subscribed to them, but if they don't put anything up that I really care to watch, I don't watch them. So
I was on the Tabletop Commanders chat today. It wasn't they do them at certain intervals, and I got a message that they were doing a chat earlier today. I happened to be around when it started, so when I was painting, I just went in, and so that was kind of cool. There were a few people on there just to chat about various things. We were talking a bit about Saga and stuff, and various stuff, AD&D, battle systems, and different things like that.
That's with Curtis?
Yeah, yep, Curtis and Ian. The Diomede is this channel. And Frank Frey was on. There were just a couple of people on.
Yeah. So, been playing anything lately or anything cool? Or
I've been playing not as much games lately. I've been... for whatever reason, I've been busy enough that what we've been doing is playing some board games on one of my gaming days just because we wanted to get something going for Epic, but we just weren't ready yet. And so we played some board games, which were cool. They were like some space-based board games, very symmetrical, very much a thinking strategy type game. It was kind of cool. But as far as miniature games, over the last couple of months, I've also been playing Lord of the Rings. And I play with a friend's miniatures. My friend is really into it, and he has enough to do both sides and several factions. And I've played with using his miniatures in the past, and I kind of told him it was one of these things where I really quite like the game. I mean, the game is really solid, and we're playing the latest release, the one that just where they updated it in August, the rules. And the basic system is virtually the same, which is kind of good because it's a great system. I don't think they wanted to change too much, but I have really enjoyed it. I kind of said to him that it's one of those things. I have like a number of friends that have games where, and same with me, where we will do both sides and not, we just say like, if you want to build your own faction and use your own faction, that's fine. If you don't, then I've got the stuff. It really doesn't matter, and so that's kind of, I don't have any plans on buying and painting Lord of the Rings stuff at the moment because I just have so many other things to do. But I'm happy to play the game because I quite like it. So I've been doing that. Played a couple of outings of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I've always liked the idea of that game and wanted to get into it, but when I have never seen anybody play it around here, or anybody in my group seem to be interested. So it's like, yeah. No, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan too. So I used to play the role-playing game all the time.
Yeah. Do you have the game or no? Do you have the rules?
No.
The reason I ask is I would describe it as a very narrative scenario type driven game from what I've seen. And it really creates you don't feel that the game gets overpowered easily. Like at least it plays extremely well where each side could have a couple of units of guys, but because the guys it's a skirmish game, and even when you start with a unit, they can scatter and you can make people go wherever you want. But if you could have really conceivably two captains of, let's say, human like factions with, let's say, roughly 10 to 12 miniatures with each captain, and then a powerful figure like Gandalf or Aragorn or something. And you could have a matching force of goblins. And then there are point costs. So like you'll probably end up with more goblins, like if that was the case. And, there'll be different point costs for heroes. But you really can play a great game. Like there's special abilities. So like if you're Gandalf, like there's a number of spells that he has access to. And each like heroes have access to use might, and they can use like just different ability to change dice in their favor, but only so many times a game. And there's some strategy definitely involved in the way you do your movement, the way you try to achieve your objectives, and even using those special abilities. But every time I've played, I felt I've walked away and I could imagine it happening in the movie. Like every time I played, I felt it was very thematic and very narrative. And it was enjoyable. Like the combat's enjoyable. It was really good. And I didn't really feel, I'm sure that every game struggles with balance a bit, but I didn't really feel any game I played was overly unbalanced. It was pretty good.
Yeah, I could see that from what I've seen a lot of the bat reps, because I used to watch a lot of them back in the day.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those games that is like, yeah, I could see myself getting into it.
Yeah.
And when you're saying it was very thematic about it, it feels like you're trying to watch, you're playing the movie.
Yeah.
And I just wonder how that would equate. And it's always nice to have somebody that has all the stuff. So if you want to scratch that itch, you can always get into it.
I'm not so much interested in trying to reenact like the large scale battles in the movie. I really find what it works well for is, if you remember like the scene where they're traveling through the land of like, kind of like the Rohan, and then like there's a scene in one of the movies where you have the orcs on the wargs that find them, and they start running, and at one point you remember where like one of them gets caught on one of the wargs and like is ready to go over the cliff, and like there's just that whole scene. That kind of scene and that kind of encounter works really well in this game, like that number of miniatures. Now somebody made
media engagement. Yeah,
I found it's really enjoyable at that level. Now, I'm not a big, really experienced Lord of the Rings player, so it's not coming from that. This is just my observation. And somebody may say that you can play like much greater battles and have like a lot more miniatures, but To be honest, from what I've seen of the game system mechanics, I think it plays really well at, 15 to 30 miniatures.
Okay.
Probably more than 15, actually. Like maybe it's like 20 to 40 miniatures a side, depending on, on what you want to do. But we probably played in the area 25 miniatures a side, and I felt it really played well at that point. It was really enjoyable. It took the right amount of time. And because each miniature can do what it wants, it getting really big, I just don't know. I mean, you can probably simplify it, but
it's kind of like a war band game in that aspect, where you got two war bands running. It's like, oh, we got somebody on the perimeter or on the frontier, and you got orcs raiding, and you end up with, like, say, an elvish party runs into them and ambushes them, etc. That's kind of like what I've always envisioned it being.
Yeah,
it's not something, or you have your party, like playing Lord of the Rings, where you got the fellowship going in, and you have a few extras with you and doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's kind of like how I envisioned it being.
Yep, we had one game, and I ended up losing the scenario, but it was a scenario my friend created, and but I was Saruman, and I had a goblin captain with a horde of goblins, and I had the Goblin King from The Hobbit, and he had Gandalf, and he had I think Aragorn, and he had like a number of Minas Tirith guard, like, a lot of them. And we played random deployment, and so there were some folks that just didn't show up where you wanted them to, but Saruman and Gandalf ended up really close to each other right away. As a matter of fact, Gandalf ended up really close to everybody I had. And so what I did is I ended up having Saruman come out immediately, aggressively at him, because I had to get all my guys to the other side of the table to open a gate to get out. And I just decided I'm just going to deal with Gandalf now somehow, because he's so close to me and he's isolated. And so I took Saruman, and I used a power where I was able, both of them had this spell, just like the movie. You can like throw them the person back and onto the ground. Like you can like push them 10 feet back and onto the ground, just like when they were battling in the tower. And so I got the spell off. He couldn't dispel it, and Saruman threw Gandalf back, like, just like in the movie. And then what I did is and this was my plan. My friend's probably going to be watching this, but I ended up having a handful of goblins, not my horde, but I had about 6 to 8 of them section off and chase after Gandalf. And what I did is I then pulled Saruman back in the next round, and I had the goblins surround Gandalf. And for the rest of the game, he was fighting them, like basically as my guys were going towards the gate, to try to complete the scenario. And so it was interesting. It was interesting tactic, and just the way it worked out.
Sacrifice. Kind of sacrifice the minions to get the job done.
Well,
sorry, it was goblins, you're expendable.
Well, definitely they would do that, right? I mean, like, these are the goblins you would see, like, I think these were Goblin Town goblins, so not Moria goblins. This was from the Goblin Town set, but they were just basically like, a few 5-6 goblins, even to the Goblin King. I mean, they're totally expendable, right? I mean, and so like he was killing them off like here and there. But he had trouble with it. I mean, once he was on the ground and surrounded by them, and every round they were going back and forth, and he was killing them off, but just not able to totally get away easily with the way it worked out. And it was interesting. I still couldn't get through. Like, the Minas Tirith guard are really effective against goblins in my experience. I've played more than once, both as Minas Tirith guard and as the goblins. We usually will rotate or do it randomly, so I don't do one thing every time. And I found the Minas Tirith guard to be really effective against the goblins. It was, I mean, they had, once they're in close, they actually usually will take them out, in my experience. But
get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's something that I've always wanted to play. Being that, like I said, I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan. I've read the books I don't know how many times since I was a kid. It was the first fantasy book I ever read was The Hobbit. So
okay, yeah, for sure, and that's an excellent one to have read. I think you might like the rules if you were to check it out. I find them. I like the miniatures. I'm not overly crazy about some of the miniatures. I mean, the new ones that came out are really nice, and I really think it's great that the GW is supporting the game and they're continuing it. And also, I really like that they're maintaining the rule set as the system that was sort of originally done, very similar. And they're not going down the way of their other main franchises, within their main. And so that's really impressive for me. They have a really big following, like a really strong following. Some of the miniatures, particularly the minions and stuff, it's a different style. And it's not that I only like GW's style of their main games. It's definitely, they're a slimmer style miniature. Some of the minions, I'm not as crazy about. Some of the older miniatures, the plastic ones. But there's some really nice ones too. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes you don't play a game for the miniatures too, though, right? Like there are times when if a miniature is a 7 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10 in your mind, if you're enjoying the game and you paint it up nice, and that's fine.
Yeah, for me, if I was going to play that game, I'd be a dwarves all the way. It's like I just love the dwarves and the entire, just like the look of them.
Yep.
Even in the movie ones, I thought, that's pretty decent. I just like they're kind of stocky, blocky type of look.
Yep.
That will go out there and just thump orcs pretty decently.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was ever to get into it, that would be the one army. Then I guess the Men of Gondor are kind of cool, or the Riders of Rohan.
Yeah.
Those, if I was going to do a faction of men, that maybe the Riders would probably be because they're more of the Viking style.
Yep.
Look, which I kind of like.
Yep. I like Uruk-hai.
Yeah.
And I like Saruman. Like, even though I played Saruman that day, I played him with goblins, but I love so the Uruk-hai warriors are pretty powerful, like the pikemen, like the ones that you see in the scene at Helm's Deep.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, thematically, I love the Uruk-hai scouts, the ones that were in the Fellowship in the Ring that were chasing down and that killed Theoden, like the guy with the bow at the end, that kills Theoden, and just like running through the woods, the Uruk-hai. I love those.
Kills Boromir.
Yeah, sorry, Boromir. I said Theoden. Boromir. I love that scene. I love that theme, of it. I'd probably get both if I was, I'd get a bit of both. I don't really like to think competitively, because I just play for fun. But when looking at different armies, what some people were saying about the Uruk-hai is they're a really good all-around force, but that their heroes aren't really that special, like any one of them overly powerful. It's kind of like playing Space Marines, in that they're like they're pretty good at everything. And actually you can use them pretty effectively, pretty easily, but they don't like stand out in one way, like above everybody else. Like they're not, like they don't have heroes that just stand out as like totally powered and stuff. And maybe that makes sense, right? I mean, you can use Saruman, which I think stands out. I don't know, but I think they're talking about their actual Uruk-hai captains and generals and stuff.
When you think about it in terms of the books, the orcs really never had any hero types. They always had leaders that were other than orcs leading them.
Yeah.
So like your ring race, the Nazgul would be their leaders, or you would have wizards or sorcerers or something, or a vamp, or something of that nature would be their leaders in the books.
Yeah.
Taking them into battle.
And that to a degree, I agree with that. There was some. I mean, like there's the one that stands out is the guy that is in the final battle in the Return of the King, the last movie, the pale-faced orc that has sort of the wide head, that's basically leading the whole army, like the one that's an orc that's like leading the entire army, that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been a while. He's actually available and in the book, but I think you're right though. I think he none of the orc leaders were the ones in the story that we're calling all the shots. Like even there, you don't see him until the end, and he's just leading the battle. He's not like the mastermind behind it, and doesn't know magic or anything like that, right? He's just sort of like the commander of the forces in the final battle. But yeah, no, it's a really, really great genre for wargaming. I mean, it's a great genre in general. Like, I always I always have this battle in my head of like, what is my favorite fictional genre? And I always put up Star Wars versus Marvel versus Lord of the Rings. Like I put all those three up there, and it changes over time. Like when a really good movie like Lord of the Rings comes out, it's like definitely Lord of the Rings. But as things settle down, I always think, well, with the amount of years that I read Marvel and how much I like Marvel, it probably is that. And then I think about like playing with Star Wars figures as a kid and watching the movies in the late 70s, and then like, but I usually concede Star Wars pretty quickly to the other two. It's usually Lord of the Rings or Marvel that are like my actual favorites. And I think I've watched so much Marvel since Iron Man 1 that I'm almost oversaturated with it.
Can you really be? It's like, well, you're not really into the TV shows or anything.
I'm not. But yeah,
I'm really disappointed because they canceled Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
Yeah,
and I was like, really? I can understand Luke Cage kind of getting canceled because it was really not really going anywhere. But
although people liked it.
Yeah, so as I watched it, I enjoyed it. It was Luke Cage wasn't one of those characters like, I have to go watch Luke Cage. He's my favorite. No, he's not. He's part of the Marvel cinema, of the TV verse or the Marvel verse. So I had to go out and watch it just because it's Marvel. And then, but Iron Fist, the first season of that, I was like, oh, come on now. It was like, where's the costume, man? Where's the costume? Yeah. And I was waiting for him to just to go out there and do everything he does in the comic books, because you see him hop in every once in a while in different comics, over the years you read. And then at the very end of the second season, when he goes out there and the guy pulls and he goes, it does the whole Iron. It's like what I expect the Iron Fist to be. Is like when they finally, after 2 seasons, they get to it, and then
cancel it.
They cancel it. It's like, what?
I watched the first season of that, and I have to say it's probably the reason why I stopped watching it.
Yeah,
like Marvel altogether on television show, Netflix. There was a point. It was really slow, and I was waiting for it to catch its stride. And I don't know if you remember the scene, but it was like one of the first times he did anything where he discovered his powers. He literally was in a mental institution and he knocked down a door, like to get out. And it was like the first time it was like, whap, and actually he used the Iron Fist. And I'm like, yes, like it's going to be good now. And I'm like, then I watched the next show and I'm like, no, it's not yet.
It's like you're sitting there going, it's going to happen. No, it's not happening. Not this episode.
No.
It's gonna. Oh, no.
I don't know.
And then the entire time they're sitting there, I'm angry. I'm off balance. I was like, he's the immortal Iron Fist. He had to be very centered and under control to fight the dragon to get his powers.
Yeah.
I don't see it. No.
Yeah.
No, he's out of his element, but he would still go, I have to focus myself.
Yeah.
And that is what I envisioned the Iron Fist being, not this bratty 20-something that they made him into be. Like, no, I'm not. It's just, and then you see hints of what he can be in the second season, and then at the end, you're like, there it is. It took them 2 seasons to do it. They should have had that at the end of the first season when they had the big fight, or at the end of Defenders.
Yeah.
If you watch Defenders, where they should have had him like that in Defenders, where he was just kicking ass and taking names and just crushing face.
Well, you know what I was most disappointed. What I was most
Yes.
disappointed about with those two, I'm kind of leading up to it, is just what I read as a kid, and this may have not been I know Iron Fist had his own comic, but in the 80s, what I read was Power Man and Iron Fist. And so Luke Cage, Power Man, and Iron Fist. That was the comic I read. And so it was like they were a team. and it was just a 2-person comic for quite a while. And even though Iron Fist predated that duo, that's how I was sort of introduced to it. And to me, I definitely felt when they announced Luke Cage and Iron Fist, I definitely felt that that's what they were going to do. Like they were going to unite those two for their own show. Now I know they did the Defenders, but I didn't even watch that because I was sort of disappointed by that point. But I would have really liked to have seen something a bit better. It just didn't do it for me. And even the movies, I mean, there are some that I like more than others. Most of the movies I like. I'm just finding that some of them really stand out and they do really well because of it. And then some of them just sort of are there and they're good and they're really good when you watch them. But when I kind of forget about them, like 6 months later, I don't really remember it as much because it's just oversaturation. There's so much.
When you're looking at, am I back? Yeah, here we go. I think I froze up. But one of the ones that kind of irked me is like I love Captain America. Mm-hmm. And what was the one where the Winter Soldier was kind of like,
I know. I agree with that.
It was just missing something. It just didn't have that. So I was expecting, I know that they'd make Captain America into be the glory boy, the Mr. Perfect type thing, but not necessarily how I always envision or what you read in the comics and stuff is how it comes across to me. But
right,
and it just something there is some of those movies is like, well, the one Iron Man. Was it the second one where they had the guy with the whips?
Wait, before you say anything, don't tell me you didn't like him. Don't you remember My Heresy Hump Day? That's like Mickey Rourke in Whiplash was like one of my favorite Marvel villains in the whole franchise. This is like your Dreadnought comment. This is where we're going to disagree. Because I loved Mickey Rourke. It's not that I liked him in the last scene when he's wearing like the big clunky armor that he devised throughout the movie, but throughout the movie as sort of the Russian prisoner with his acting, playing the Russian, I thought he was great. Like, they send the guy into the jail cell that kind of looks like him, and then the guy looks down at his badge and Mickey Rourke looks at him, and like they clearly sent him to replace him, and so Mickey Rourke kills him like with his bare hands. And I just... he's talking about his bird, he was really into birds, the parrots, and I thought he was such a great villain. And that scene when he comes onto the racetrack and he's like,
cuts the car in half.
Yeah, he's like, I'm here, literally, like he powers up his whips and his suit, and the suit just burns off his body, and then like people are seeing him trying to avoid him on the track, and then he starts cutting cars in half, and like Tony's just like, what the hell is going on? And he's just basically like, I've arrived, like without saying a word. And I don't know. I just loved it. Most people do agree with you that they don't like Iron Man 2 in the hierarchy. Like a lot of people feel it was a lot worse than Iron Man number 1. However, as much as I love Iron Man number 1, there's something about Iron Man 2. I didn't like Iron Man 3. I didn't really like Iron Man 3. I liked 1 and I liked 2 and I didn't like 3.
3 is where you got rid of everything at the end with Pepper. Yeah. I agree with you. I prefer 2 over 3.
And I liked 2. The only thing I didn't like about 2 is when Mickey Rourke was standing in that big, he drops into that river area, like at the end of the movie where they have their final scene, and he's wearing his like suit, and he looked kind of ridiculous after he was in the Whiplash character already. Like the change his look suddenly. I didn't like that, but I loved the whole leading up, and I loved the backstory of him basically being his father helped create the arc reactor, and basically his family was never given the credit, and they even like basically said that they never gave these folks credit, and so they lived their lives sort of in poverty and just really like feeling they deserve more. and he was this genius, right? And I just loved it, though. I just loved the whole story. I thought, and then Whiplash, the character in Iron Man, was never interesting. Like, he had like this ponytail and a mask and a cape and the two whips, and there was nothing about him that was anything like the Whiplash in the movie. But they took it in the movie and they made it so much better, in my opinion. It's one of those rare instances where I actually like the movie better than the comic.
Now, when it comes to 3, the only thing I really loved about 3 was the Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
It was like the part about him, he's like, "You'll never see me coming." And then he's like, "Oh, I don't know." It's like this. He's like Mr. Mousy guy when he's not in character.
Yeah.
But when he's in character, he's like, "I'm gonna kill you all."
Well, and that was a bit of a slip. I mean, that was a bit of a change they did on their part, because the Mandarin in the comic was a powerful character with magical rings and everything, but they made him to be like a false front kind of.
Yeah.
Like of it, which I never saw it coming. Actually, I never expected that to happen.
Yeah, it's like that wasn't what I was expecting. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just playing a part that I just like, you're paying me well to do this. And then when they send him off to prison, and it's like, so that was just hilarious. And so the entire movie, that's the only part was like the Mandarin made that movie for me, no matter what phase they had him in.
Yeah,
like, he exuded what I thought the Mandarin would be, even when he wasn't the Mandarin.
Right. But it was enough enjoyment just to see it in action on film.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing, is like some of the movies are really, really good. Like, well, an example, I never read or had any interest in the Galactic Guardians, the comic.
Yeah.
And so I had no idea what I was going into. And I would say the most magical moment in Marvel, maybe outside of Iron Man 1, just because not having seen a really good Marvel film and then having Iron Man 1 come out was quite amazing. It was just truly amazing for me. And also the fact that I was such a fan of Iron Man as a kid. But the only other thing I would say is that, like, I didn't see Guardians of the Galaxy coming. Like, I honestly, we were up at our cabin, and we went into this like small town that had a 3 theater. It just had like 3 theaters, just really small theater. They were playing Guardians of the Galaxy, and nobody knew anything about it. Like, we saw the commercials, we were like, yeah, we want to go see that. It looks funny, like, the music and the raccoon and like space, and it looks interesting. Let's go watch it, like, But I had no idea what we were gonna see. We were like flying sky high when we left that theater. Like, we were driving back to the cabin, and every one of us was chattering like a chatterbox in the car. Both my girls, my wife, me. We were all laughing, recounting the scenes of the movie. We just had so much fun. And I'd have to say, like, because of that, it's probably one of my favorite Marvel movies. Like, out of all of them. I mean, I liked the original Avengers, and I liked the Iron Man, and I really liked Thor Ragnarok. But I'd have to say, if I'd have to pick one, twisted my arm, I'd have to say that Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one, my favorite Marvel movie.
Yeah, I would agree that that one was the one that just gave you, it's like, I've read the Guardians before, so I knew who they were, but they made the movie did not even just give me the feel of the snarkiness that you would find that you came out of the comic books. That how the comics were, but it's like it just exploded. It's like bigger than life. It was the music selections and everything. It was like, man, I'm flashing back to the 70s here. My youth here as a teenager. Yes, I was a teenager in the 70s. Sorry.
Yep. Well,
I was a young teenager, but a teenager all the same.
Yep.
All the hormones that went with it.
And I'd have to say I like the second one a lot too. It was not as good as the first for me, but I'm really disappointed that it's pretty much done. After that one, like, I'm quite disappointed that we're not getting a third. And
they did announce that they're not having a third one.
Well, the thing, they pretty much, it is possible, although they pretty much, by actually letting the director go, many of the actors, like the actor that played Drax the Destroyer, has basically said he wants nothing to do with it if the director is not going to be involved, if they're going to stick with that. They've announced a cartoon series, so kind of makes sense to me that they're trying to keep the hype and the momentum going and doing something different, like with the cartoon series. But, I suppose it's possible they'll do a third, but I think this really throws a wrench in their plan.
Yeah.
And
I'd say Drax is hit with his deadpan humor. Is him and Rocket going at it, is part of that whole interaction of working together. And I just have a hard time if they have to replace him or.
Yeah. I think it's hard to replace any of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, like, obviously it's not an issue with them. I mean, they don't want to change
Peter,
like the voices of Groot or Rocket, but I think at the same time, like, the animation's not an issue. It's just the main characters. Yeah, I'd really think it would be hard for them to actually replace them. They're kind of typecast into it for those roles. I don't think it'd be easy to put someone else in them. But yeah, it's probably one of the most disappointing things they could have done in Marvel is to actually take away that third movie. I would have rather them said that they weren't doing the next Avengers and just that the Avengers is done. They're going to do something different. I'd rather see the last Guardians movie.
Yeah, the last second part of Infinity War is coming out next year, and then we also have Captain Marvel. That will be out. I'm kind of interested in her.
Yep.
I really, to be honest with you, I didn't have much didn't read much about her. She just kind of was out there.
Same with me.
On the peripheral type of thing.
I'm the same in that regard.
And so when they said they were bringing her out, it's like, okay, I can see that. It's like, I knew who she is, but it's not one of those ones that like, oh yeah, I got to see this one. So I can see why they put it so far into the back, because I don't know if she's going to have anything to do with Infinity War, helping out, bringing everything back.
Well, you saw Infinity War, right?
Yeah.
So you saw at the end what happened with Samuel Jackson, the spoiler. Like,
yeah. They click the button, like Captain. So you see the little symbol for Captain America, or not Captain America, but Captain Marvel.
Right. So I'm thinking she's going to be involved.
Yes. And she's one of those ones that's really highly powerful. That if they would have had her on board to begin with, it's like, I'm sorry, but you're going to get your ass beat down type of thing.
Well, the other one that they have come in, or supposed to have, but it was just spoiled in the second Guardians, right? Of the Galaxy was
the Golden Boy.
Adam Warlock, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he would have been another one that actually would be a showstopper a bit. Like the power level increases when some of these characters get on the stage.
Yeah, you're talking like having Superman show up.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I mean, but it's interesting. This is turning into a bit of a Marvel show, but like discussion, because we're going to get the people from the comic book channels there to start coming over. But you have the
we are Marvel geeks, okay?
You have the franchise, was bought with where they can get they had the merger, right, with Fox and where they sold some of it. So my understanding is they have the rights now to the Fantastic Four, and also likely Silver Surfer. And
Thank
so,
God.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. And what that tells me is, and Dr. Doom. And so what that tells me is that there's opportunity now to increase the power levels again, another level. I mean, because even in the comic, the Avengers, like all of the intergalactic stuff was another power level above the stuff happening on Earth. And so even when many of the Avengers went out to greet forces that were out in the galaxy, they were not always up to snuff, right? Like, as far as the power level. And so that's kind of the way it has to work, I guess. And I would love to see Silver Surfer in this universe, like done by Marvel Studios as opposed to Fox. And I'd love to see a Silver Surfer movie, like just a dedicated movie. I think it would be awesome. Like just an intergalactic movie, like we've seen now Guardians of the Galaxy, like intergalactic movie. Let's see like a Silver Surfer, and it likely wouldn't be funny, although maybe they would do it that way. I don't know.
I got a question for you. What is wrong with Fox? It's like, don't they understand how to make these superheroes work or something?
Well, Spider-Man Homecoming was good, right?
Yeah. The Spider-Man stuff was always been pretty decent.
Yeah.
But they seemed to get that together, but was like the X-Men and any of that stuff until recently, when you look at Wolverine and when you put all that together, that was pretty decent. Okay. But all the early stuff, you going back, it's like,
we got a number of people that have joined in. We got too caught up in this. I apologize, guys. We have got Osterwolf. We have got Dan Booman. We have got Games with Sarge. I believe that.
Oh, Sarge is here. Eric.
This gentleman's name is Eric, I believe. Hello, everybody. We had some technical difficulties on the beginning of this show, and we didn't even continue with the main topic. We've just been chatting just about various stuff. And so apologize for missing you guys there. I had to check back a couple of times, so I don't know how long everybody's been there. But yeah, we're just talking Marvel, and we're talking Lord of the Rings and just various genres and things.
Oh, yeah, so. Osterwolf, I agree with you. Punisher is so badass. Just put it that way.
Yeah. So yeah, and actually, Games with Sarge was talking about the Musket and Tomahawks project that Dan's doing. I know it's Smitty and Dan that are both doing that. And
I haven't seen anything from Smitty in a while.
Yeah, I haven't either. I'm not sure what he's been up to. But yeah. So the Marvel stuff, a little, it can get to be too much sometimes, I do find. But with the Fox stuff, I liked X-Men Days of Future Past. I thought that was a really great film, like X-Men film. I didn't like the one that came after it. And I like First Class too. I thought that sort of series with X-Men was quite good, like First Class and then Days of Future Past. I loved when Wolverine went back in time, wakes up in the room with this woman in bed, and there's like 70s music playing, and he's like back, in time. That was just so cool. I really loved it.
And you go, oh crap! I still got the bones. I don't have my adamantium claws.
That's right. That was a great movie. That really was good. I remember seeing that and really enjoyed it.
When they finally started it's like when they went back and rebooted everything with the first generation of X-Men, that's when they finally, maybe we should actually figure out how to write and get some good directors.
Well, I would like to see, I don't know if it's possible, but I would like to see a really good Fantastic Four movie. I realize they're an earlier incarnation of Marvel. They all have the same color suit. They're a bit more, the Thing has got, a lot of people like the Thing, and he's got, a rough attitude, and a lot of people like that. And I realize that, they're kind of prototypical early comic characters for some of the others. But there were some great early Marvel stories. Some of my favorite villains, like Doctor Doom for sure, and then Namor, the Submariner. Those two, I like Doctor Doom as a character and what he can do in the comics probably the most out of the two, but I, for some reason, just have a really soft spot for Namor because he's just such an angry guy. Like his anger as the Prince of Atlantis and like those early ones when he wanted to just basically bring a tidal wave to New York City and like destroy New York. And he was so angry. There's something about him that I just have always liked. And if they can bring that stuff to the film, and if they can make a really somehow reinvent the Fantastic Four for today in a way that people could identify with, I think that would be really cool. it's like they're missing a lot of pieces in the Marvel universe for the current story, and they still have the opportunity to incorporate those. But they won't be in sync with the timeline and the way the comics were released necessarily, but they still have the ability to do it.
I'm just curious which studio has the rights to some of these different characters, because we know that, like we have the Marvel studios are putting out really good stuff with their movies. They have their whole timeline that they're going forward, and then you had the Fox had a whole bunch of stuff, but seems like 9 times out of 10 the Fox movies were poorly written, poorly directed, and just kind of flopped around like a flop and crappie.
Right.
And they had some good ones, and the later ones, like I said, the latest generation ones where they started really putting them together are working out pretty good when they rebooted everything and started over.
Well, Fox was there to make DC look good.
Yeah.
Because excuse me, but the DC, I'm not a DC fan, and occasionally I do like a DC movie, but I don't think they've done nearly as well as Marvel Studios.
Yeah,
we've got some more messages coming in here. It was mentioned that Smitty is likely it's hunting season, and he's been busy, according to Dan, so he's likely not putting up videos at the moment. And some other chat about personal lives and stuff. These folks know each other. And looks like Dan has got his painting done, a lot of his painting done for Musket Tomahawks.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Dan, you need to start making videos so we can see all this stuff.
I think he said that he was going to look at it over the holidays, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, no pressure. Like we just did a whole video to talk to you about it, but no pressure.
No pressure at all, man.
Totally up to you.
We only showed you how to do it. That's what you're waiting for.
Just kidding. So, but yeah, it's funny. Like, speaking of DC, everybody seems to hate Batman versus Superman, and I walked away from that movie, and I was like, "Damn, that was a good movie." There's spoilers here, I know, but the whole Martha thing, like the fact that they had a mother with the same name, and that was the reason why he didn't kill him.
Martha.
Yeah. Like that part, I get. Like I get it. Like I totally get it. Like I get that part being having difficulty with that. But if you actually look past it, Batman versus Superman was like a really cerebral film. Like the shots where Batman was dreaming and like the dream sequences were really sort of in depth, like for a superhero movie. Like when he would, like Bruce Wayne was like in like the room, like with I think he was being tortured or something, and it was just like they had some really cool dream sequences. And I found some of the concepts were kind of heavy, like between the characters in Batman versus Superman. And I think now I know DC is definitely darker than Marvel, and I realize that there's a bit of that, like just by the nature of it being DC in the cinema. But I enjoyed it. I really liked it. I'm trying to think. Like I watched Justice League, and I was like, not really that into it, to be honest.
I've never been a Justice League guy myself. I've always been a Batman fan. I love Batman. Superman, I hit and miss. It's like, whatever. When it in the DC universe, I always read Batman. Nightwing is one of my favorites. My son's really big into. I love. I'm having a brain lock here when it comes to DC.
What is the power? What power do they have? You're talking about?
Well, when it comes, Arrow.
Green Arrow.
Yeah, Arrow. I'm always into these guys that are not superheroes.
Yeah, like the vigilantes.
The true vigilantes that actually get the job done.
Do you like the show Gotham?
Yes, I love Gotham.
I have to admit, I stopped watching it after a few seasons, but Gotham was done really well.
Yeah. And
I thought it was really good.
when that's the thing is like when you think about you're thinking like the DC universe, you have Superman. Really, the only thing that's ever stopped Superman is Lex Luthor. To be honest, it's like when he every once in a while he gets his hands on some kryptonite or something. But I just would never see Superman as being, as something that you're able to stop or be stopped. It's like, oh, I'm going to come over there and just there's one villain down.
Like Dark Side is, and they have some pretty big, powerful characters, right? Like Dark Side and stuff, but who's basically like their version of Thanos, or Thanos is their version of Dark Side. Like they're very similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and then I watch. It was like on TV. I watch, all the. I watch Arrow. I watch Flash. There you go, Flash. I like.
Oh,
Flash.
Sure. My daughter watches that. She loves that show too.
I when it comes to the comics, I like Flash. I used to watch or read Flash too. He was always a big one. All the times that they always try to make a show out of it on TV, I always like watching that. And his only power is he's fast. But like watching the show Supergirl, I just want to put my fist through the TV half the time watching that show.
The funny thing about superpowers, though, is it really is like the writers can do whatever they want in those sort of universes. And like you say, like the only thing he can do is be fast. Yet he's fast enough to actually reverse time.
Yeah.
Like if you want him to in the comic and even on I think, like he's like basically runs around the world, or Superman too, like fast enough to actually make, times, change. And then even in Marvel, it's like, this guy, like Ant-Man, he can get big and he can go small. And so that in of itself, like gets really big. So obviously can be powerful, like, and gets really small. So he can like obviously go through a keyhole or do something. But then you get to the point where you go becoming like a subatomic particle. And then like all of a sudden it's like, what can't you do at a certain point if you can get that small,
The one thing I've always wondered about Ant-Man, all right, he can get big. It's like when he gets really small, he gets really dense and strong, right? He's taking all of his mass and he compresses it down into something. But when he expands, he gets not as strong. He's just big.
Yeah.
So it's like you're taking that mass and expanding it out. So it's like, oh, I'm floating. I always envisioned him actually floating away. That's what it's something they should have done the first time they made him big. It was like, whoops, this is not working out the way I wanted.
Right. And I did like the Ant-Man movie. I mean, it was cute too. Like just some of the stuff where like a toy like turns into something really big or whatever. Like it was just there was some funny stuff in it.
When when they're having that big battle on the Thomas the Train.
That's funny. Well, this was an odd show tonight, huh? Like we basically this was just a chat session. We didn't really talk about much wargaming because we had the technical difficulties at the beginning.
First 40 minutes of the 35 minutes of the show was trying to figure out how to get me on air. Yeah.
So Osterwolf has to go. Thanks for joining in, Osterwolf. Good night.
Anybody have any questions or anything?
Yeah, like before we go, we could do that. I will just say though that what our show was supposed to be
we'll do it next time
tonight, and what we're going to do next time. For those of you guys showed up, we'll just kind of let you know we had a pretty good topic for tonight, and we just had some problems where we were a half hour late because of technical difficulties with cameras. What we're going to do is a discussion on the nature of gaming and how board games, miniature games, and skirmish games have become so popular, and how that reflects on traditional wargaming of big battle, large army, tabletop wargaming, even on the floor, like, original, like, wargaming, like, and really how that has affected the hobby from a hobbying perspective, like an artistic perspective, how that's affected the hobby from a gaming perspective, and even how that's affected the hobby from other perspectives, like social perspective and the way you game with or meet other people for gaming and opportunities to game, as well as technology. And so we had I think a really good topic for tonight, but we just didn't really have the time after the issues we had to probably dedicate to it. So it just really became a bit of I won't call it a rant session, but it's becoming a bit of just a shoot the crap session. So.
Well, it's after we went into a 90-degree tangent when I asked you what you plan, and you got onto Lord of the Rings, and two Lord of the Ring fanboys just kind of took the topic in a different direction.
Yeah, for sure. We just went totally down this genre.
And then after we realized that we had gone that direction, like, we're not even going to talk about the subject we had tonight.
Pretty much. I don't think that's ever happened, but it's just the way it's worked out tonight. So we'll do another show likely in a couple of weeks, I would say. We'll announce it. Just be in a couple of weeks.
Let's see. A couple weeks from now is the 13th.
Towards Christmas, but
I think it's the 13th.
Okay. Yeah, it should be good.
So we'll do that one, and we might not do another one until January, I'd say.
Yeah. So Dan and Games with Sarge had mentioned that they thought that was a good topic. I really, I don't want to actually exhaust the topic today, but just sort of like a food for thought. One of the things that I was mentioning to Rusty is just the cycle time, because we have so many games available to us, Kickstarters. There's so much attention distraction with games today, and part of that is because board games and skirmish games are so much easier to prepare for, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the cycle time to get into a game and the investment, both money and time and energy, is becoming less and less. But then it's also becoming so much more in the sense of things to do, because so many people want to do so many things. And it's taken a hobby that for some people at times has been a journey over time in building an army, and a journey over time in exploring a genre, let's say in historical or something. And we're seeing less and less of that today. And so I think that'll be part of the lead up to the discussion for the next one, because it's interesting. It's an interesting topic. We oftentimes as tabletop wargamers ask why we're doing what we're doing and what we want to be doing, because there's just so much.
Yeah, I'd say so. We get into what we'd like to do, and it's something that's I spent the whole weekend just over Thanksgiving, playing with my family. We had our family game day, 12 hours of World War II. Yeah. And it's one of those topics or subjects we all get into. And
right.
Then there's other stuff. And today, sitting around this morning, we're discussing BattleTech. My brothers are all BattleTechers too. Mm-hmm. So we're all talking about, hey, about taking an entire company, 12 nothing but Warhammers. And it's like, hey, it's like, who has enough Warhammers to make it? I was like, well, I think I have like 8 or 10 somewhere in there. So I might have to put a couple thugs in there or something. But, it's just whatever trips your trigger. There's certain games or certain genres that you just love. And it's like, Sarge is on here, and he's in American War of Independence, or the French and Indian War, which all three of us are big into. Yep. And it's just a era that is kind of nostalgia that I used to play and love to play, or would like to get back into it again if I could.
We got a couple of comments on there, and that Sarge said, living in the golden era of wargaming, there's so much to do. Is that good enough, though? Yeah, good topic. And then Dan says, sometimes the skirmish games are a good way to get into the tabletop gaming and then lead to larger scale games. Yeah. Which he agrees. And no, so what we'll do is we'll do that topic at exhaustion. We're going to go through a number of facets of that, and that will likely take the entire show, a good length of show next time. And so, apologize that we didn't get into miniature gaming tonight too much, other than our intro and talking about what we're gaming. We just use it as a chance to just say hello. but we will hopefully we will do some testing. We normally don't have to, but we'll do some testing next time ahead of time. We'll get on a bit earlier, and we'll make sure that everything is up and running next time. We just had some changes, and yeah.
It's tonight. What happened was that my laptop that I use did an update. Did it this afternoon, so it did the update, and then we went to go get on, and it's like, why isn't my webcam working? And then it decided to do another update at 8 o'clock when the show is supposed to start. And so with all that going on, and then trying to get it to go, and then we're sitting around trying to go through all of a sudden, I said, hey, I'm just going to go to my other computer and see if we can get it to go over there. And it's like, all right, fine. We got just tired of messing with the other one. I'll try to work on it and get it to work so I can go back over my desk where all my stuff is, because that's where I keep all my miniatures. I don't have anything. You can see some of the stuff over here. Behind me is my one table where I got a lot of stuff, my workbench, and my seat, all my cassettes, all my artwork and stuff. And then we got the gaming computer right here. But in a file cabinet full of stuff. Yeah.
Well, we had some good comments, and I think we're getting into next week's, not totally into next week's topic, but we're kind of getting into it already, because it's just one of those things that begs discussion, I think, and I think that makes a good topic. So I think what we're going to do is
leave it at that.
Save it at this point. This is a taste of it, and a taste of what this was supposed to be and will be next time. And so thanks, everybody, for joining us. Everybody that still made it out and stuck with us despite us veering off schedule here. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys on your videos and various things. So,
all right, everybody. Definitely tonight was when we got a crate of lemons. We made lemonade and made something refreshing to drink. All right. So the next time we get back together, which is the 13th, over on Palmer's channel, we will do the subject on his channel the next time, and we'll go in depth on it. So we'll see you all in the next time, and see you on the 13th.
Take care, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Talk to you later.